Good morning and welcome everyone to the first session in our webinar series, Great Minds Think Alike. In today's session, we're going to be digging deeper into the complexities of mining and exploring business below the surface. The reason we created this series is because the mining landscape has changed dramatically over the past few years. There are multiple current challenges and trends having more complexity, efficiency and productivity losses, environmental challenges and safety challenges. But the opportunities we have around those are to reevaluate methodologies, implement digitalization, automation, and use new technologies to provide better visibility. Initially, we will gather a big picture overview of current challenges and trends, and thereafter dive deeper into each of the complexities faced by mining companies, along with the approaches and tools to overcome those challenges. With the mining industry incurring billions of productivity and efficiency losses annually, it's imperative to consistently reevaluate the methodologies we use. The mining industry has taken the same approach to mine planning for over 30 years, and we need to employ new methodologies if we expect to get different results. In this series, we will explore whether great minds actually do think alike and share how great minds become great. Because this value chain is so complex, we have decided to create a separate session for each element in order to really dig deeper. The link to register for further chat sessions will appear in the chat box shortly. We have muted everyone just to eradicate background noise, but we do want you to interact and participate. So please do put questions in the chat box, and we will try to answer all of them at the end of the session. And if we don't get to them all, we will reply to your questions directly in an email. Without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Dilly Naidu. He is Chief Vision Officer of Madala and Associates and Business Development Director of RSPH. Dilly has been developing businesses to bring them from good to great for the past 45 years, and he brings double the amount of passion to the table. Dilly, over to you.
Thank you, Caroline, for that introductory words. This is a very, very important session as far as we are concerned at Rifleshot for the mining sector. So as Caroline shared, we have a number of our partners across the globe, as well as South Africa, that over the next 9 sessions, we will be sharing a number of case studies where we've made a significant difference in the operations as well as the business. What I wanted to do is to set the scene in terms of the past, the present, and the emerging mining sector in South Africa from our view. As you know, given the legacy of our country, discrimination, apartheid, a few years ago, our country went through a reflection, which we call the Truth and Reconciliation process. And it was almost a cleansing process of admitting of the past faults and the mistakes that we've made, and moving forward, how do we create an inclusive society? So what I wanted to share with you is from the last century or so, what is the truth around where mining started in this country? Largely with British investment, and you need investment in this business of mining, and you need investors who have got the patience, because it takes a number of years before the shareholders can get their return on the investment. But the truth is that the mining sector was largely built on the sweat and the back of black male migrant, what I will call slave labor. And we have to acknowledge that. And once we acknowledge it and cleanse that, we will work on a plan of how we have an inclusive mining sector moving forward. And these miners had no individual rights and privileges. For all intents and purposes, with the low wages and other living conditions, they were exploited. In addition, there was loss of lives through injuries, health issues, fatalities, and deaths. And just last week, we attended a South African health and mine safety event where a number of these issues are still prevalent to date in South Africa. Of course, there's environmental, social, and community impact, and there's lasting harm to date that's going on. What is it that we're going to do about changing this? At the same time, despite those challenges, South Africa was a #1 technology innovator. And I love this term from the Afrikaners, Boere maak 'n plan, which means despite the challenges, we'll make a plan through innovation. And a lot of that has been imported to other countries. As many of you would know, mining started with the gold industry in South Africa, where the shafts are very narrow and very dangerous. And despite that, South Africa and the city that I lived in, Johannesburg, is called the city of gold to date. However, there's been no downstream beneficiation to other stakeholders other than shareholders. So it's been very selfishly focused. And the shareholder enjoyed in the profits, sitting, smoking fat Cuban cigars and beautiful whiskey. So that's, a reflection, and it's something that we need to acknowledge. But what I would suggest to the mining companies and the mining sector in South Africa, that you don't need a government or the police to do this for you. You should be doing this through your own entities within your own organizations, in terms of planning for the future. So where are we with mining in South Africa today? It is one of the largest employees other than our civil society, greater than 400,000 employees. What is very encouraging, in a male-dominated environment, today we have over 60,000 women. In our own company, we have women that are going down shafts in companies like Glencore, Amplats, amongst others. This is very encouraging, although there is still discrimination against women. The mining sector last year contributed over 133 billion to our South African fiscus, largely by the PGM groups. But the sad news, it's down from a high of 26% GDP. The question we should be asking, why have we gone less than 50% contribution? And what are we going to do about this? Is anybody really sitting and looking at this? Why have we moved? And what are we going to do about it? To not grow exponentially by 50%, but go with a strategic plan year on year. And where should we be in the next 10 years in this sector? Certainly, in my opinion, not 12% GDP. The potential and the opportunities with the new minerals that are required globally, there's great opportunities. The mining sector also really excelled under challenging conditions during the COVID-19 pandemic. And over 70% of the population in the mining sector has been vaccinated. And they need to be applauded for that. Also, their communities that they operate in were vaccinated. However, today we still have uncertainty of government investor policies, and that's something that needs to be seriously looked at to increase the investor appetite to invest in our country. There's bureaucracy, long lead times, mining rights, including the environmental impact assessment timelines. There's a need for a new cadastral system, so there's transparencies, investors and mining companies understand exactly what they need to do. There is a big challenge in terms of there's lack of new explorations. Globally, there's an average of about 5% of capex that goes into new explorations. In South Africa, it's less than 1%, 0.75%. So there is a need for new minerals investments. And as you know, from exploration to actually operations and generating revenue takes several years. One of the big challenges is Eskom. So as we all know, the country is challenged and the mining sector has also been impacted in the word that we've invented called load shedding. And this has tremendously impacted the mining sector at additional costs. In addition to the electricity challenges, we've got huge challenges from our national carrier and the rails and the port side. Huge bottlenecks. I was at a mining endeavor a few weeks ago where this became a big subject from the coal industry, from the iron ore industry, manganese industry, where the last mile, if you would, in terms of the rail transportation and the Transnet ports, huge bottlenecks, and they are losing billions of rands per month. There's also labor, unrest and strikes, and as we speak, Transnet is on strike. The other issue is security with illegal miners. And this is partly a fault of the mining companies themselves. When you start a mine, as part of your mine planning from inception, with an average of 40-year life of mine, what is your exit plan? And how do you close that mine appropriately so you don't encourage the challenge that we have of so-called zamas in South Africa, which are illegal miners? So the community impact, as far as the abandoned mines are concerned. An example is I used to go to Welkom in South Africa, where you had thousands of people going down the mine daily. Today, the mines are abandoned. It's a ghost town today. And the community impact is tremendous. It's irreparable. There is a move and a push, especially from the Western countries, that coal is a pariah status right now. And what we saw in South Africa with some large mining tier 1 companies, they have diluted this to so-called junior black miners. At the same time, while there's war between Russia and Ukraine, suddenly the coal mining industry in South Africa and Australia cannot keep up with the demand. So we need to look at this. It's hypocritical when you single out coal as a huge challenge, and we can admit, we know coal is a polluter to the environment. But how do we look at technologies, emerging technologies, to try and do a better job of how we produce coal and supply that coal? But don't be hypocritical in condemning countries, emerging countries like South Africa and Africa, by saying you should not be doing coal, because we still have, from all the stats that we see, over 300 years of coal reserves in our country. The other issue is the matured skills depletion. We had a very significant pool of leading mining engineers, geologists, and others. Some have migrated to other parts of the world, while others are aging and retiring. So there is a need for greater inclusion in terms of race, gender, youth, what we commonly in South Africa call Ubuntu. And to quote my friend, Bonan Mohali, who's written a book which means lift as you rise. So as shareholders and mining companies, how do you lift the rest of the communities and stakeholders with Ubuntu in practice? So having said that, what are the trends as far as the SA mining sector is concerned? I believe we need a new dawn where South African government needs to welcome investors. We need to look at fiscal stability. We know there are global impacts that does impact our fiscal situation, but to a large extent, we can also manage that better. Exploration technology, there is a big demand for new minerals, things like lithium amongst other minerals. You know, what are we going to be doing of exploiting that and taking opportunities, especially around battery technologies and others? How do we attract youth, women, together with a program of skills development? Localization of the entire supply value chains, rather than just being an exporter. What are some of the things that we can do from a local supply perspective as well? I had the opportunity of looking at the Anglo hydrogen fuel cell truck that's been built, which I understand cost $2.5 billion US. That's a lot of rands when we multiply that by 17. So what are we going to do? What's the action plan around the whole battery opportunity that exists? We need to focus on safety. A number of annual reports that I read from mining companies talks about zero harm. And the country has done an amazing job where at one stage, I remember we had something like 600 deaths per year. The latest stats that I've picked up in the last 9 months is 38 deaths. But 38 deaths is one too many. We should move to zero harm culture and minimize and have zero debts. And Rifle Shot and the companies that we associated with, we have solutions in this area to help you as mining companies to minimize injuries, fatalities, and deaths. How do we integrate the communications by providing housing, education, health, and what we call sustainable enterprise supply as part of your value chain? I was very impressed with what I saw with companies like Impala, who's doing things around housing, also with Zimplats in the housing area. Companies like Exaro, Anglo, and others that are working on a program in Sibanye-Stillwater's called Impact Catalyst, which is focusing seriously on the integration of these communities, as opposed to just focusing on the coalface, if you will, which is digging the coal or the gold and other commodities. Lots of focus today on ESG. So why is there so much focus on ESG? It tells us that we must admit, as a sector, we've never focused on ESG. That is why there's so much issues. So the ESG should not be something that you just report and takes up the bulk of your annual report for shareholders. The ESG needs to be embedded in the DNA, the culture of the organization, similar to our organization. That's where we have embedded. We have a social conscience with everything that we engage with. It's not something that we just report on an ESG report. So that is very serious. That's something that needs to change. It's not a reporting tool. It's a cultural change in the DNA of the organization. The carbon emissions reduction. So how much carbon would be needed for decarbonization? That's a conversation that should be discussed. Everyone's talking about it, but there's carbon that's going to be required to do that. And we need to move from being selfish shareholders to stakeholders. So that's a very quick snapshot of the era that we've come through, the present situation, and where we're going through. So we need to reimagine mining to improve people's lives. That includes employees, communities, and all other stakeholders. The question we should be asking, well, let's say I have a mining sector without transformation. And by transformation, I'm not talking about just complexion. I'm talking about the business of mining transformation, including the things we discussed previously. Having said all that, from a global perspective, when we look at mining as an opportunity, SA is actually good as a country to invest vis-a-vis global mining jurisdiction, including Australasia, South America, the rest of Africa, outside South Africa, because we have a very good tax system. We have a very good legal compliance system, and there's very good shareholder value. And not discounting that we have a beautiful country. It's an amazing, amazing country. So I wanted to touch a little bit on our organization. So how can we help you on this journey from what I've shared with you? So what is Rifle Shot's purpose? Our purpose is to further enhance and consistently improve your operational and business performance with the social conscious, the ESG that we talked about. We know that all mining companies have already made investments in the operations. So how do we help you further enhance through it? And my colleague Ian will chat a lot about it. And we use this to what we call Innovation Cube, which we've trademarked and invented as what most people see as innovation is a product. What we believe innovation is how we think from a leadership perspective. Of course, investing in the human capital, which is paramount, number one, and the business transformation through the use of leading digital. And you'll hear a lot about this over the next several years, so I don't want to spend time on that. And specialized core competencies across the value chain. Very quick snapshot of Rifle Shot. We're proud to be celebrating over 21 years of enhancing our clients' business and operational systems. We've put in sweat equity, self-funded, private company. We don't believe in being suppliers of stuff. We have strategic client relationships with our strategic alliances with a partnership ethos, a true partnership ethos. We also have African international business as well as information experience. Our core management team has the luxury of having over 180 years business as well as industrial experience, including other sectors like oil, gas, petrochemical, manufacturing. We also have a resultant as opposed to a consultant-led. You deal with a number of large international companies that call themselves consultants. We've trademarked the term resultant, which is an outcomes-based, where you measure the milestones and look at what the output is. And today, I think a word that's coined is agile. We've been doing this for quite a while. So how do we operationally improve with our focus with the resultant mindset? Last but not least, Rifle Shot is a member of the Medalla and Associates Group, which is a majority BE Black women-owned level 1 company. I touched on this, but the way we work is we start by how we think, how we operate, how we feel, the passion we have to excel, how we treat each other, and of course, to stay in business, we have to make profits so that we can reinvest. Some of the key industry sector focus is the metals, mining and minerals, the energy, utilities, oil, gas, petrochemicals, the manufacturing sector, both process and discrete. Key OEM partners, and you'll be hearing from a number of these international OEM partners that are either number 1 or number 2 in the world. Some of them you will recognize by their logos, and you'll have some key individuals and subject matter experts from these organizations that will be participating with Rifle Shot during these series. A sampling of our long-standing clients, you could see the names from over 100-year-old companies to some newer emerging companies that's not on this list. Of course, to make this happen, we have to have competent, passionate people. This is the core team that is complemented by contractors that we have when we get major projects. So in summary, the goal of Rifle Shot engaging with you, our clients, is to be on target every time, within budget and on time. And we've seen some major CapEx projects, whether it's Eskom, whether it's Sasol, billions and billions of US dollars has been lost. And from a Rifle Shot perspective, if you speak to our clients, you will see that we've done things largely on time, on budget, in most of the projects that we've been involved in. With that, I'm going to hand back to Caroline to introduce Ian.
Thank you, Dilly. Ian Huntley is the CEO and co-founder of RSPH and founder of the Manufacturing Accelerator Program. Ian also has global experience. He's been a business leader in deep industry sectors and has 45 plus years of experience in large and small corporates. Ian, over to you.
Thank you very much, Caroline. We can have the slide. I'm not going to go through the break sheet. I'm going to talk about professional services because that's the foundation of what Rifle Shot was set up for and key to delivering value. So rather than being a product-led organization, we like to lead with our professional services. And one of my frequent quotes is to help our customers focus and realize value as they go on their journey. And in fact, that's the definition of the Rifle Shot name. It's the opposite of a shotgun approach. Rifle Shot, let's focus on what your business is supposed to do and the supporting processes around it. So in summary, and we don't have time on this call to go through each one of those. I'd love to go and explain each of them in detail in personal engagements. But the key thing and the driving aspect is both the first and the last points on this. The client's business needs first. So what are our clients needing to do? Where do they need to go? Let's take a short, medium term and long term approach onto this. And we encapsulate that in one of our innovations, the business alignment and growth. So rather than us trying to push stuff down your throat, we work with you. We work as part of your organization to align with it, to ensure that you're aligned all the way through, and I'll touch on that a bit more. Innovation cubed, Dilly's already touched on it. It's key to the thought leadership and what we bring into the organization and help you become leaders. And again, there's a whole presentation around that. Similarly, on the resultant approach, I don't like paying for theoretical results. I'd rather pay for the real thing. So a resultant approach is absolutely key. We deliver on results. We'll work with our clients on that. And we've embodied all of this in what we call a journey roadmap. And again, some innovation into that. Most people need a consistent, integrated journey. And we've built that into what we call the roadmap. Dilly touched on it. We have local and global subject matter experts. No one organization, I don't care how big you are, can be true experts and thought leaders in every bit of subject matter. Rather, let's work with it, let's fit them into our framework of discussions on the roadmap to deliver what we need to do. And the last point is, and we'll see, in fact, you see from many of the customers that Dilly put up a little earlier, many of them have been with me personally for more than 40 years. So we think we fit into a trusted advisor status, but we also see that with our suppliers. So rather than chopping and changing suppliers, we like to work with them. If there's something changed in the market they need to know about, let's feed that back to them. Stay with them and help develop. So what are the benefits of working with us? First of all, an aligned vision. So your vision, strategy, and execution all need to work together. They need to not only have an up and down integration so that we're all focused on the same goal. We need to have from the shop floor to the board buy-in. And that's a key part of the process as we do. And across those different levels, we need to have measurable KPIs and scorecards, because what you're not measuring, you're not managing. And then the architecture, whether it's IT or business architecture underneath it, needs to be robust. We have a little formula, which I'm going to touch on the next slide. But again, it's one of our trademarked leadership innovations. So what do we mean by the IQ, EQ, SQ, DQ equals OI? First of all, the intelligence quotient. Are we actually thinking about what's happening? Are we just following the herd, the sheep over the cliff? What about the emotions? We all know about emotional intelligence, but quite frankly, it's absolutely key. Are we working with it? Are we developing the people? Are they learning to be part of a team? Then there's the system quotient. Do you have the processes and systems? And I'm not talking necessarily computer systems here, because that's in fact in the digital quotient, but do you have the processes thought out? Are they integrated? Do they work together? And of course, do you have the digital technologies that less control it, but enable and help people to do their roles in the organization better, smoother, easier. And we put this whole lot into what we call an organizational quotient. And you need to be able to measure. Next thing I want to touch on, and I'm blowing up a couple of the summary points just to show a little bit of depth on this. So in terms of the client business needs first, where is the client now? Where are they in their journey? Where are they in the market? What are the challenges that they're facing? Are there internal challenges, external challenges? Could be regulatory, could be market dynamics that are coming up that are changing the way we think. Or the whole market could be going away, and you need to diversify. So what are the short-term, medium-term, long-term interests of our clients? Short-term, you need to stay in business. You need to be generating the returns, keep the shareholders happy while balancing out the medium and long-term. How should a client get there? What are the steps? And we often talk about what are the processes, what are the fundamental journey initiatives that need to be started and balanced, and when do those need to start? Is this journey durable and scalable? It's no good going down a process and then in 5 years' time you come back to me and say, look, that was a bit of a dead end. I'd rather know that we're putting building blocks, we're building this wall one brick at a time and giving you the building that you need. Do you have the skills and personnel in place? Do we need to bring in a training program? We do have relationships with a number of training education institutions, whether it's artisanal or at a business school level. And then, of course, you need a risk return analysis because you can't do it all. And you need to look at what are the things that are going to make a difference to my business in the here and now and across our journey. So business alignment and growth. I've touched on this already. It aligns the vision, the strategy, and the executables. I too often find vision and strategy and execution not aligned at all. So here is the opportunity to pull it all together. What about personnel working towards that common goal? Again, I've worked in organizations where you would believe that there were 3 different organizations working in different directions. Then that alignment of the internal pull, again, I touched on it, rather than have it a push, I'd much rather see that our customers are pulling us to implement more, that they're impatient. And I do have some case studies. If we had time, I would go into that. But the key thing behind it is we work with your people, your processes and technologies, and recommend a growth platform and journey to do that. We make use of world-class analytical tools, whether they're continuous improvement, capability matrix, OEE, process activity costing. I want to touch on that. A lot of people will talk about activity costing. Very few people will go down into the detail by individual process to make sure we're getting the right return. Next slide, please, Caroline. So the journey roadmap, this is really important because it's great having a strategy, a vision, and I think we'll all criticize government for having great visions in some areas, great strategy, policy documents, but nothing on execution. So this is really where the rubber hits the road. So how are we going to do this realizable journey, achievable steps with all the measurements that go through it. First of all, you've got to do is prioritize the initiatives. Many companies I go into, the one I went into, they had over 1,000 initiatives. There's no way you could focus on 1,000 initiatives and be able to deliver on them all with sustainability. Do your staff have the capability and capacity to do it? Do you need to free them up, reassign posts, put in training that I've mentioned? And key to it is it needs to be a sustainable 3 to 5 year rolling plan. So as we build every 6 months to a year, what have we learned? What can we add? What can we change to make this work in our favor? Then scenarios. We don't live in a static world, as we've all seen over the last 3 to 4 years in particular. Where are the degrees of flexibility? Some you can predict, some you can't. But do we have the flexibility in the scenarios that we're going with to be able to change course or adapt our course when the market or the environment changes? I've spoken about local and international subject matter experts. And the building of the blocks with enduring value. But I think the last point I want to spend a couple of seconds on this. We use a very strong engineering approach to doing the projects. So whether we're looking at a portfolio of projects or an individual project, we need to build them as though we're an engineering project company, one of the large ones, whether you're talking about a Murray and Roberts type approach, because you want to be able to know how you got there, where the decisions were, what risks we mitigated, what were the reasonings by doing it. Because if there's a change in scenario, we need to be able to go back and be able to revisit those. Some of the partners on this journey, you've seen those before, are key, and we've had relationships. So for example, ION on the right-hand side, I think we've got about a 17-year relationship. DAPT IT is even longer. So let's just look, and I'm not going to go through all of these. We've been involved from very detailed microseismic detection of rock movements, deep underground at Western Deep, 4 to 5 kilometers, right through the historians, the assays, through to ERP and top management. We've done projects around logistics and coal handling. We've done vendor selection. We've developed integrated information management systems, both with structured and unstructured data. A lot of companies, if I just stay on the unstructured data, have a lot of information that's available, whether it be video or other materials that they actually need to keep in their overall database and structures. So let's step to the next slide. So we've spoken about the professional services, but what is key is that we have teams and experts in each area. So within the resultant approach, it's both what people would call consulting with an end goal perspective, and key on those ROI projections. And those ROIs are not just financial. Return on people, return on processes, return on environment, return on society integration. Those are some of the ROIs. The whole subject of value chain optimization and visualization. It would be very good to be able to optimize a value chain, but do we actually know what's going on in real time or near real time on these processes, and those are key. In terms of project technology, the many technologies out there, our customers are familiar with some. We're happy to work with all the major technologies, but also by different project types, different methodologies work. And we roll this all into our own rifle shot project methodology. We spent a lot of time in mining operations management. And why do we spend that time? Well, if you look at the difference that finance or procurement makes to an organization, yes, if they get it wrong, they can cause major problems. But in reality, a mining operation is about the mining, the people, the equipment, the haulage, the end-to-end work. And we've done some studies with one particular company. I won't mention them because they might be embarrassed, but we saw they were leaving 6 billion rand on the table every year. That's a lot of money. We talk about the whole EMS approach, the ERP. Most companies today have ERPs. Sometimes you need to change the asset management, the maintenance management. What about the strategies? Are we using predictive analysis? Can we look ahead to see when is the optimal time to maintain assets? The planning and scheduling. Are we looking at a detail level and at the long-term view? We work on the permits to work. It's very key, and Dilly touched on safety. We've had major successes, and we will work with you to start setting up your manual processes if they're not there, mature them, and then take them into electronic. Logbooks. How are you managing it at the moment? Again, are you doing it manually? Can we help you into electronics? Inspections and rounds, more and more important. Again, let's help you into an electronic view of it. Also done a lot of work in what we call operational due diligence. So within the mergers and acquisitions space, if you're looking at investors coming into your organization, or there's a merger coming in, where are the strengths and weaknesses? Where are the core competencies within the organization? Where do additional investments need to go in to ensure that the new partners get out what they really want? And then, of course, plant and process audits. Again, are we getting value from what we're doing? Is there something we could do better? And quite frankly, this should be done on a very regular basis. If not annually, we suspect it should be 3-month or 6-monthly audits, just to stay on track. It's part of the continuous improvement process. I think I'm going to call it a day now. I'm very much on time. Please talk to us. We like to be on target every time. In fact, we like to exceed expectations when we're delivering the services. And these services, as I've mentioned, are the background to being able to have a successful project, whichever technology you're going to put in. So call any one of us. Back to Caroline.